Global Socialpreneurs is brought to you in part by Positive Talk Radio, KKNW 1150 AM in Seattle. Check them out at www.positivetalkradio.net.
Welcome to Global Socialpreneurs, a one-of-a-kind talk show showcasing expert social entrepreneurs. Learn their stories and their secrets to creating a sustainable impact. Now, here are your hosts, social entrepreneurs Ann Scottlin and Shametria Gonzales.
Welcome back. I'm so excited to have you all with us again here. You are watching today Global Socialpreneurs. I'm Ann Scottlin.
And I'm Shametria Gonzales.
And we're your hosts. We are both social entrepreneurs, and you'll learn more about us every time you watch. We've both shared parts of our story before, and you know that. And we're looking for movers and shakers around the world to be on the show and help us and others learn what it takes to be a social entrepreneur, how exciting it can be. Where do you find funding? How do you find collaborators? What's the secret? And mostly, how wonderful is it to have a passionate experience helping others, right, Shametria?
Yes, all the time.
All the time. So I'm going to jump right in and give you our special guest, who I'm super thrilled to have on the show. She's been on one of my other shows, and I absolutely adore her. Her name is Kim Tops, and she works at NASA. Kim is a NASA engineer quite some time and a committed social entrepreneur. She's also an influencer, author, leader, coach, and public speaker. Kim is passionate about serving, leading, and making a difference in the lives of others. So please help me welcome Kim Tops. Hi, Kim.
Hello.
So glad to have you back.
Thank you for the invitation.
My pleasure. My pleasure. So I know everybody's wondering, tell us a little bit about yourself and how did you end up at NASA?
Interesting question. So I knew that I was going to be an engineer about 3 or 4 years old. I had an older brother first, so we were great at fixing things and solving problems. My mother was a science teacher, so she fed into that and exposed us to different little things. But I was that kid that grew up in the era of the Jetsons, Star Trek, Star Wars, and all of that. So I always had a dream to work at NASA. And so here I am.
That is incredible. And so how did you become an engineer? Because I love sharing the stories of the people we have on, because some people will feel like, oh, I can't be a social entrepreneur because I do this or I did that or I don't have training. But tell us like who you are, because every kind of person can be a social entrepreneur. So how did you become an engineer?
So my mother really fostered into that interest. And I was always fascinated just with solving problems. And I was really good at all subjects, but I was exceptionally well at math and science. I had friends that were older than me, and they were like, I'm having trouble with my math. And I was like, oh, let me see what it is. And it's like, how do you know how to do this? I was like, I don't know. And so it kind of started from there. But I, of course, had an interest there. And even just looking at the things that I do on an entrepreneur side does not shy me away from my engineering side. So the same project and management skills that I use to plan an event are the same project and management skills that I would use to build a rocket or design a space station. It's the same type of concept. And then even just looking at the impact on how it's always my life mission, how do I make things better, but also how do I make people better? And so there's not a disconnect for me. It's all connected and all tied together for me.
Wow. I guess my question to you is, I love the fact that you found your gift as a child and like recognized like math is my gift and made that into an actual, 1%, like, I don't know the statistics, but like, you know, a woman working at NASA as an engineer, that's already an accomplishment. But the fact that you have a book and that you're doing all of these other things as well, my question to you is, how did you go from being an engineer at NASA to being an author, a thought leader, a coach? Like, how did you make the time for that? Like, how did that become a thing for you?
So I think I was always on that path, but you know, the pandemic happened, right? So I didn't have anything to do. I mean, I could literally have worked probably 15, 20 hours. And I was like, nope, that's not it, right? You can't work the whole time. But because I am single, I don't have any children, I couldn't go volunteer. Couldn't go to a meeting, physically go anywhere. I had nothing but time. And I said, either I'm going to be fat from eating all this food, or I am going to be like really fat from sitting and watching Netflix all day when I'm not working. So I did two things. I wrote and I worked out.
There you go.
And so I wrote a complete children's series the first year. Like I wrote a complete children's series, and I was inspired by my nieces and my nephews and the students that I mentor, because I wanted to talk about hard topics, right? So how does it look like when your parents get divorced? And my parents got divorced when I was 8. So I can talk about that. You know, what does it look like when you're being bullied? How should you react? And then, you know, what are some tips that I could give to young men? What tips can I give to young people? And so just looking at what my legacy looked like. And I said, well, okay, let's choose the path of authorship.
Wow. And then coaching, I heard you say kids. So your series of books is for children. Do you have
right? So let me be clear. So the very first set of books that I wrote the very first year was a children's series. Okay. And then God was like, okay, that's great that you can follow instructions, but we're not going to release that first. You're going to release the book on purpose, because people do not know what their purpose is. And so when I wrote the book, I didn't necessarily write it. And I haven't released it yet. I'm almost there. I wanted my 16-year-old nephew to be able to read it and get something from it. But I also wanted a woman, you know, that's thinking about, well, should I take this path or that path? Or I'm stuck, right? I may be 50 and I'm stuck and I've never done anything that I really wanted to do because I was busy taking care of other people. And so I didn't necessarily say, okay, this book is for this person, and that's the whole probably the process why I'm going through the edit process some more, because he's really making me narrow down in on my niche and who my persons that I am talking to. And so that's the phase that I'm going through now. But my whole point was that I would impact people and I would change people's lives just by sharing my own story and sharing my own journey.
That's so beautiful. I love that so much. So tell us what the social entrepreneurships you have right now, and then we'll explore how those came to be.
Okay. So my very first company that I opened was Top Event Planners. And so I had that company in 2004. At the time I was engaged, and I was like, wow, not knowing it costs this much to do a wedding. And so I was like, these same project management skills that I use at NASA. But I also, throughout this time, my friends and my girlfriends and my roommates and my sorority sisters, everybody was getting married. And they hired a planner, but it didn't really go that well, right? And I'm like, why am I doing your flowers? Your wedding's going to start in 2 hours. And they were like, you know, we really should have just hired you. And so that's how that one came to be.
Wow.
And they were like, we should just pay you to do these things because you were already doing it for us anyway, and ended up doing it. And I was like, okay, so we're going to take an attitude and have a different direction when we plan events, and that making sure that things are done. And so the same project management skills that I use at NASA, that helps me to be able to do that. Because people are like, I can't believe the wedding started on time. Did you want it to start on time? Yes, we're starting on time, unless you don't want it to start on time. And then the other company that came out of the pandemic, because I could not plan events, right? The whole world literally shut down. And I had about 4 clients, 4 brides that were on my book, and nobody wanted to cancel their wedding. So we just pushed it out. And when we initially went in the pandemic, I actually thought it was going to be 2 or 3 weeks and we'd all go back to work and everything would be fine. So I was actually shocked. But then when they were like, nope, we're not going anywhere. And I said, well, let's just push your wedding out to end of 22, spring of 2022, 2023, and you should be safe, right? Because nobody wanted to narrow down or trim. Nobody wanted to do Zoom. They wanted to have their day that they planned. And I was like, well, we can pivot and be able to do that. We just have to wait until the rest of the country opens back up and people feel comfortable. And so that's what we did. And because I was not able to plan any events, the other thing I did was I opened up Top Resume Coaches. So right before the pandemic, because I literally had been at home since February 2021? I've been home a very long time. But the weekend before, I was invited to the University of Houston to come talk about resumes and to come put on the resume workshop. And I was invited to critique engineering students' resume. Now I'm a board member at U of H, so they can call me anytime. I'm a life member, they can call me anytime. So that's our connection. And I went over and I did that workshop. They assigned me to 5 students. By the end of the session, I had everybody. They were like, "You were so good. Like, I've never thought about doing this. And we should pay you." So that's how that one became a business. And literally, God, like, I was doing my daily journaling. And he was like, "Okay, today is January 15th. By January 31st, you need to open up this company." I was like, "I don't have a website. I don't have a phone number." And he's like, "No, you already have a company. So you already have some of these things. You already have a potential client list, because all of these students, you had like 100 kids there. All of these students, you're going to review their resume." And just how things work, by me being obedient and going ahead and just leaping and jumping right on into it, I landed 6 clients within that first 30 days, and all of them land their dream jobs. I'm talking about 6-figure salaries. We're talking about, the weeks of vacation, signing bonuses, and all of that was tied to that 15 days of me like thinking, because I'm telling you, the logical engineering side of me, like, "Oh, we need to write out a business plan. I need time to develop my website." I wouldn't have launched that business probably to the end of the year.
Wow. So I just want to go over for any of our listeners. So you have a book coming out. What's the name of that book?
I am the author of Purpose, Peace, and Progress: How Success Through Action Builds Better Results.
Okay, the children's series. So for the kids out there and the parents that want to get it, I want to get it. What's the name of that series?
So I have not put a name on the series, so I have the individual titles, because God was like, "You got to release the first purpose book first, so that has to be first, and then
Okay,
I'll go through the process first.
Then we're doing the children.
Then we'll do the children's series.
The resume coaching for the young adults and the individuals that are looking. What is that? How do they get to you for that?
So that one's simple. topresumecoaches.com, and then hit the get started button. And then we work with students, because you need to get an internship or co-op, no matter what your field is. Then we work with, people starting off, mid-level executives, and then those who desire to be executive in C-suite.
Okay, and the fourth one, which I think everybody wants on this one as well, for my brides to be that want to get to you.
Yeah, so I also own Top Event Planners, and then that one is topeventplanners.net, and that one too, you also hit the get started button and tell us how we can help you. And we're full service event planning when we do all events.
Amazing. So here's a question for you as we kind of pivot into more of like the specifics of what it takes to be a social entrepreneur.
Yes.
So Kim, how would you define social entrepreneurship who's someone who had no idea what it is? Not to put you on the spot, but just in a casual conversation. Like, well, what's a social entrepreneur?
So when I think of entrepreneur, just like when I think of engineering, we're always solving problems, right? So what is that problem that is aligned to your purpose that you need to solve? And it can be stuff like poverty, inequality, education gaps, environmental, whatever it is that you're passionate about. And I think those things are the things that, as a social entrepreneur, so for me, and I spent a lot of time working with young people. And so that's why it was important for me to be able to identify and be able to address some of the concerns for our young people and give them something to be able to go to as a resources other than, TikTok or the internet, right? That they have something that they can read and go back to, and that they can even, keep with them and share with them as they go throughout life. Mm-hmm. Then when I looked at event planning, the thing was important was, I'm working on a board, or I'm serving the youth in my church or the youth in my community. But at the end of the day, I'm really planning the event, right? Yeah. I'm trying to figure out how to market and reach my audience and how to motivate the next generation. And so in order able to do that, those are all of the event planning skills. And so then when I decided that I was going to be an author, I kept saying, well, I just didn't want to be, the next New York bestselling author or the best author on Amazon, but what type of book that I could write that would make a difference in the lives of others. And not just that, what type of impact can I have to the community that I work, live, and serve? And so the other aspect of my book, and even in my coaching and also on Star Coaching as well, and with the coaching and the book, allowed me the opportunity to say, well, let me pick where I'm serving currently, one of the nonprofits that I'm serving in currently, and figure out how I can tie what I am doing and also be able to make an impact with them. Mm-hmm. So a percentage of my first year book sales is going to go to the Alzheimer's Association, where I have been volunteering since 2014, and I became a board member in 2021. Wow. And then I also serve as the Longest J chairman as well. And so then I kept thinking, how can I make these impacts? So I'll run specials for my clients. I'm like, go donate $25 and get 10% off or 20% off on the next package. And so that I'm making a bigger impact. So yes, I'm helping that person reach their goals, but now they're helping me and allowing me to pour into a community where, it's still one of the leading causes of death. It goes unrecognizable. And we just happen to be in June, which is Alzheimer's and Brain Awareness Month and the longest day. And so how can the things that I am working on, how can I bring in the social aspect and be able to tie in the people, bring awareness, raise funds, be able to provide good information and good tips so that whoever may be caregiving or suffering with this disease, how do they live their life on purpose and continue the things that is important to them? And so it's about making a difference, but also how can I collaborate? How can I make a bigger impact and change the world? And so
I love that. And I'm going to squeeze in a part B here, which is a lot of people, it's amazing on the street when we ask people if they know what a social entrepreneur is. Most of them still don't in this country. And so part of the purpose of the show is educating people about what it is and how it can be open to anyone, really. Right. One of their first questions is, well, what's the difference between a nonprofit and a for-profit social initiative? So how would you explain that to the average person?
Mm-hmm. So again, any business, organization, corporation, they are in business to make a profit. So it's just a tax code. So just because they're a nonprofit doesn't mean they're not making money. Just because you own a business does not mean you're making money. That's how you have to have revenue in order to be able to pay your tax team, to hire the people, hire the experts that you need, but also to develop the programs that you need as well. And so the nonprofit part is just the tax code. It gives you the tax implications. So when you make a donation, you get to write that off. And so like if I donate a proceed of my books or my earnings to a particular nonprofit, then because of the tax code, I'm able to write that off. Now, yes, profit, yes, you are for profit, but it's just the tax code is what I would say the difference is.
Interesting. That is so interesting. So, and this is the way I understand how social, and this is part of what we ask everyone really, because there's a lot of fuzziness around social entrepreneurship. So we've been trying to get everyone's opinion, like what does that, to the people who are doing it, what does that really mean to you? So what I tell people is, one, social entrepreneurship can be something that you have that's created to solve a social problem. Right. And one way to do that would be that you actually employ people who need support from that social issue. You have them make a product, you have a service that you can resell. Another way is to create, like, I'm going to have a balloon company because I love balloons, but 20% is going to go to Alzheimer's Foundation, but you set this up with great intention. It's not an afterthought. It's a lot of intention. And then another way is that even nonprofits, as you were saying, and as you talk about a lot, can collaborate or partner with social entrepreneurships. Yes. A lot of nonprofits can have a division where they help. I think Goodwill is not a nonprofit and it's a private business, but you can have people who need employment, teaching them skills, creating resale value to pay their salary, to pay their income. So there's a lot of different ways that you can be a social entrepreneurship, and sometimes that overlaps with nonprofits.
Exactly.
And my question, I guess, for you, just piggybacking off of what you said, to the social entrepreneurs who heard everything we said today, but it's still kind of like, how do I get started? Do you have any suggestions for people like yourself who are high achievers, who are in this space of, creating and cultivating their own businesses, but that want to connect it to social change? I know for you, you had already been volunteering, so you
Yes.
automatically were able to get on the board and then connect to somebody who's just like, look, I have money, I'm a business owner, and like, I want to be a social entrepreneur now. Well, how can we do that?
And I just think, like, even the fact that you are having this show and having this discussion is going to bring so much awareness to people.
Yes.
But at the end of the day, we're thinking like, okay, what is my legacy? What is my life purpose? How do I tie the things that are important to me so that, 10 years from now or 20 years from now, our kids are not trying to figure out what's going on with the environment or what's going on educational wise, why the disparities keep happening, the health disparities, gender disparities, all those things. And so I just think it's important to identify the thing that you're passionate about and just start. So, you can just start with the website. You can just start with literally with the Google typing in what it is. There is a nonprofit tied to everything that I can just about think about. They have, the United Way. One of the things that all corporations partner with is United Way. And having been a graduate of Project Blueprint, I went through a cohort for right about 6 months where we specifically focus in on the issues and the problems that are aligned directly with where we live. And so that's another powerful program. And you can Google United Way. It's titled Project Blueprint.
Wow.
And so it will specifically show you what the issues are where you live, in your zip code, where you drive up and down the freeways. And there were so many different things. And so I've always been passionate about kids, passionate about youth, but I also know as a child where my mother, she's turned 80. And so, that's a blessing, but we have a family history. So how do we figure out making sure that, she has what you need now, thank God she has no signs, no symptoms. So we've been blessed, fortunate, but there may be a time because, she has 10 siblings and they all had some type of impact with this disease. And so just figuring out if I can do my little small part. Now, when I initially got started on this board, when I first started volunteering, I did not see the end for this disease, not during my time. But now after sitting on the board, sitting in these research meetings and listening to the research studies and the advancements that they have made since I've been a board of director, I can say now that we will see our first survivor during our generation. I can see that now. And if you know anything about Alzheimer's, it's a terrible disease because literally the person, they cannot remember anymore and they may not know who you are. It doesn't matter if you've been their child their whole life, they may not know who you are. And so it is one of the most devastating disease because you see your loved one and then they just don't remember. And so it's up for us to take that initiative. So once you find out what that is that you're passionate about, connect with the executive director or the CEO, and they will sit you down, take you to lunch and tell you how you can help them. But I can't think of any organization, nonprofit or volunteer wise that does not need funding. But they also need your time. They need your level of expertise. They need you to get out and advocate for them and to be able to share with others because you don't know who is going to be impacted by what the work that you're doing. And so the blessing in all of that is, yes, you have a profit business. Yes, you're blessing others with your skills and your talents, with your products and with your services. But then how can I tie that in? And when I opened up expanding my businesses and scaling, one of the other things I wanted to do, I wanted to help not just be in my community, but how can I make that difference globally? So I went and sought after a firm that hired skilled, degreed individuals in other countries. So I have an assistant and a web developer and a social media designer that are from Kenya. So I give them a whole world of opportunities. Then they get to learn from me how to run their business, coach them, because my my web developer tells you all the time. He was like, I learned this skill from you just by watching you. And so I can put together a quote, I can put together a proposal. I know how to do that just based from our interactions and how we interact. And so not just looking at the world that I live in, but how can I make an impact across the waters?
That's good. Global social entrepreneurs.
Global
social entrepreneurs. I want to just give you your flowers right now. The only time I ever heard of Alzheimer's, Pastor T.D. Jake's mom actually passed away from Alzheimer's. And he talked about it at a sermon. Just because he said that, it made me go look up the disease. And then I was like, wow, this is how do I protect myself as a young child and eat the proper foods, or,
exactly.
I realized that it's something that's also genetic, right?
Yes.
So a foster child adopted. I'm like, how do I go back and look at,
right.
genetics? So I just, this is a big issue. So I just want to say thank you for choosing that and honoring that in this space, because it's not I had never heard of it till I was 29, I'm 31.
Right.
So you're definitely needed. And so you said something about finances. And that's the only other question. I think social entrepreneurs are always kind of figuring out, well, how do I make money and give money when business is supposed to make money? What do you have advice-wise for social entrepreneurs that want to give back, but that also want to make a profit and keep that going? How do you effectively give back? How does it make sense for you?
Right. So you have to plan for that, right? Just like you have your budget, you plan for that. So I actually have a line item. And I normally, people send me messages and they're like, well, can you sponsor this? Can you do that? I make my decisions in November. So if you haven't got to me your proposal, the November of the previous year, so that I know going in that year what it is. So you have to plan for that. I think a lot of us do not use financial planners. You should use a financial planner so they can help you organize your finances and what that impact looks like. But how do you put that in your budget? Just like you plan for marketing, you plan for training and development, you plan for how it is that you're going to give back. And even everybody on my team it's just a beautiful experience, because everybody on my team, we're all supporting the Alzheimer's Association. And so we're not just with our funds, but I have 2 people in another country. It also affects their country as well. It's a worldwide disease. Wow. And so, they decided, well, I'm going to give an hour of my time and we're going to create whatever flyers, whatever videos, whatever that it is, but it all makes a difference. So the thing is, you plan it and then you start and you stay consistent. And so, maybe you're not at a point, where you can write a big check, but maybe you can do 10% of your earnings. Maybe
so let me ask you real quick. So kind of pivoting back to specifically to social entrepreneurship, when you started, let's say, your resume building business, so to solve a problem for young graduates who are not finding employment. So how do you, I would say the resume service is kind of fortunate teaching them, because you don't need a ton of resources other than your own skill to get started. If you were creating a social entrepreneurship where you were, let's just as an example, addressing hunger at the local level, or you wanted to create a for-profit business as a social entrepreneurship, do you have any clues for us for our listeners, where you might start finding resources to help get your entrepreneurship started? My goal is to have what used to be, it's cool to be an entrepreneur, change to be, it's cool to be a social entrepreneur. So when you are looking for funding in the many organizations you've been a part of, do you have any clues for someone who's like, I need something to get it started? Where do I even begin?
Yes. So one of the fun things that I learned, I probably wrote my first proposal when I was 8 or 9 years old, when we were doing a food drive at the church. And they were like, I was like, well, I could ask everybody, to bring 10 canned goods, but like, okay, well, who can I collaborate with? I'm 9 years old. I'm like, who can I collaborate with? And I was like, well, I go to the grocery store with my aunt every week. So I said, well, let me start with our local grocery store. So I just wrote a letter. And my aunt, she told me what to do. She said, write a letter and ask them tell them what you're doing, tell them who you are, and ask them for what you want. So that's my thing. Ask for whatever is you need. So find out in your sphere of influence, who do you know? And a lot of times we have people right there in our own sphere, in our own network that can help us. But every city, every town has a food bank. Every church has a food pantry. Food is an easy one. But my sorority, we decided to take on feeding the students. And so what does that look like? When they're in school, they have food, but then when school is out, they don't have food. And so we have this let me see, let me get the name wrong. I'm gonna have to look at the name. It's called PALS, and I can't remember the acronym, but we are partnering with local schools and we're providing food for these students when they're not in school. And that includes even in the summer months. What do children eat if they can't go to school, right? So there is so much opportunity there to build not only a business or a product or service, but there's opportunity for you to partner. The other thing that I learned how to do at an early age was to write grants. There are so many business grants and funding available, and just funding available that you do not have to pay back. I'm not talking about loans. I'm talking about grants that you prepare the grant, you tell them what you're going to do. You put your, again, budget, your planning in there. You explain what it is you're going to do, and you go for the grant. And
I love this.
You're going to win it or not, but you write to win, right?
Right. And I just want to point out that this is something that most people don't understand. Most people who aren't, well embedded in this conversation only believe you can get a grant if you're a nonprofit. However, that's completely not true. You can absolutely apply for grants for a social entrepreneurship, for a business that is created to solve a social problem. Absolutely. And I see a shift coming in the future while nonprofits are doing tremendous work. I see more individuals globally being able to find ways to participate and start their own social entrepreneurship. And then once you get up and rolling, the difference is in many nonprofits, you're absolutely dependent on funding, maybe often government grants, depends on what kind of project it is, right? But a social entrepreneurship, once it's up and rolling, the whole objective is to create enough money to either put right back into it or create income for the employees that are, come from a specific background or whatever that is. So I love that. And I love that you shared that, you can get grants.
Yes.
Yeah. What about
there is a bunch of funding, like they have funding for women, funding for food, funding for whatever your project is. You do a little research, but there is plenty of available funding.
Amazing.
Do you have a specific website that you can give them or anything? Because I know for myself, Global Giving, it's an organization that you can go and sign up there, put your information on there if you're a social entrepreneur or a not-for-profit, and they will take your information in there, and they have a platform and people can just go look it up and see, who you are. But you have a specific website or any, where.
Not off the top of my head. I mean, they have a paid subscription to grants, but you can go to your local library. There's a book.
Yeah.
And sit there. It's free, right? You go to the local library and it'll list all the private grants. It'll list all the nonprofit grants. It'll list all of the scholarships. I mean, it's just amazing.
Wow.
And then they also have actual databases and networks and paid subscriptions that you can tie into those as well. But if anybody's interested on that level, just send me a message and I'll be happy to look that up.
Beautiful. Coach Kim, you're amazing. I appreciate
you. You all doing the same thing. You just never know how we're connected, right?
Exactly.
Well, that's the thing. It's connecting and collaborating. And this was my vision even before I started the show, which was I have been trying to reinvent the wheel and do everything myself for a long time. And it's been really hard work. And I'm like, no, there is no reason now that we are so connected. I mean, Zoom, if nothing else, not even counting social media, there is zero reason why most people in the world can get to a cell phone.
Yeah.
So why aren't we coordinating, not just locally, not just regionally, not just nationally, but also internationally? If you have a really unique program that you want to build, don't think you're the only one, not in an ego way, like, oh, someone else thought of this first, but in, I don't want to reinvent the wheel. Who can I learn from in Australia, in South Africa, in anywhere, right? In Malaysia, who is doing this same kind of thing? And then how do I tap into that so that we can share information, resources, global contacts to really make this explode, which is how, the Global Impact League here was born. And what I do coaching social entrepreneurs is teaching everyone to reach out and connect. And Shametria too, and everything she does, where she's training young speakers and so many other things to connect and stop feeling like you're isolated. So a huge piece of this, not only educating what social entrepreneurship is, but also giving people resources and contacts to change the way we do things.
Right.
Yes.
And I think the pandemic helped us because we were able to bridge the gap with the virtual tools and with social media.
Yes.
But, a lot of people are like, well, I don't want to use those things. But now everybody knows how to do it, right?
Yep. And I think this is the most important part. And I know we're going to have to wrap up, pretty soon, but you do a lot of stuff. And I just was training a class and I realized that what I have is expertise in all of these things, but every last one of them was needing personal development.
Mm-hmm.
What it took to get to where I'm at. So I'm like, how do I teach them to take care of themselves? So to the people that are listening, my question to you is, in being this amazing boss that you are and all of the things that you have in vehicles moving, how do you take care of you to be able to be the best version of yourself to do that?
Right. So the first thing I'm going to say, I can't pour into the cup of other people if I don't pour into my cup first. So it is my duty to pour into myself first. So I will actually wake up an hour or 2 hours before and I just pour into me. And that's my time to pray, to meditate, to do any reading, any planning that I need to do. But I also exercise. I make sure I have a good meals each day. I make sure that I have enough sleep that I can turn my brain off for a little bit. But it's not like I pick a Saturday and say, okay, this is going to be self-care Saturday. No, every day is a self-care day.
Every day.
And I try not to do, I can't do all of it in the same day, but I also, where I can hire people, I can empower people, I can give them a salary and bring in people to help me. So I can only be great as the people that are around me. Wow. So if I can give out a role, even if I don't have time to cut the grass. Mm-hmm. But I can give that job to someone else that needs it.
Yeah,
I know how to design a website. I'm a software engineer. That's not where my expertise lies. So I empower somebody that lives in Kenya. That's all he does. I pay him to do all our social media, all our website design. So recognizing that we need help and that we can't be great alone, and that when we're great, other people around us can also be great. And so figuring out that daily part and what it is that you need to do daily for yourself so that you can show up, but also figuring out how can I empower other people and give some of the things off of my plate that I'm good at, but I can hire and empower somebody else. And then that brings wealth and that builds generational wealth in their family and their legacy. So, it's a complete full circle.
Wow. If that wasn't a great way to go out, because that applies to every aspect, not only our personal life, to social entrepreneurship, to empowering others, to using our talents wisely and our time. If you know what you're good at, do it. Make money there so that you can really contribute exponentially at the thing you're gifted, and then make enough money to help support other people, give them jobs and careers as much as possible, and share the joy, right? That's the whole point. Yes. Wow, we are out of time. I don't even know. I'm so excited to have you here, Kim. Thank you for coming. I know you are literally at this moment in time the busiest person I absolutely know. And I know Shametria, and I know me, and I know some really busy people. Yeah. So we are incredibly grateful for your time and just for sharing this. Your love, your passion encourages so many people. I know the people watching are going to super appreciate that and learn from how you have gone before. And so everyone who is listening, watching today, thank you so much. And we look forward to seeing you again next time. You can find in the notes, and you've seen throughout the show, links for all of us, for Kim Tops, Shametria Gonzales, and myself. If you're looking to become a social entrepreneur, please reach out to me. I have a social entrepreneur mastermind going on right now. And if you're looking for a better platform to speak as a social entrepreneur, talk to Shametria. She's an expert at that, and she can get you situated. She's an award-winning national speaker herself. And if you know someone who would be great to interview on this show, if you know a social entrepreneur that I don't, that we don't, please recommend it. Shoot us an email, shoot me an email. We're looking to fill up our summer with absolutely amazing guests. So anything you can contribute, we appreciate. Any last words, Shametria, before we say goodbye?
Thank you. I'm so grateful. Just let's leave this in a spirit of gratitude and in high hopes that whoever was supposed to hear this will be able to get it, because we showed up and did the work.
Yeah. And join us next week live every Wednesday at 12 Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. We're live streaming, and send us a message or question. We'd love to answer it on the show and respond to you if we possibly can. Be well and be kind. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.